with Dr. Narendra Mohan Agrawal, sir.
About the biofuel policy and how it has been all these years. So I would like to ask you a question that the government has set very promising ethanol blending targets. So how do you think that ethanol manufacturers and distilleries play a part?
Yes, because we have preponed, 20% blending from 2030 to 2025. So it is very ambitious by any stretch of imagination. The sugar industry is going to play a dominant role because if you look into the blending targets and the contribution of different sectors, by 2025, if today we look into the requirement of the ethanol, this is something, around 10,000 million liters, precisely 1,016 crore liters.
Right.
And out of that, 55% of the ethanol is projected to come from the sugar industry feedstocks and 45% through grains and other feedstocks. So that way, sugar industry has to play a dominant role. Sugar industry now do have the capacities. Over the years, we have built up the capacity. So capacity is not a problem. The only thing which we are looking for is about the feedstocks from the sugar industry. Because few things come into the picture to make it success. One is availability of the sugar cane, because you have to make sugar to meet the domestic requirement, and the additional sugar you can divert for making ethanol. Second thing is, the sugar cane availability and relative economics. Making sugar is profitable or making ethanol is profitable, because the corporates or any sugar unit or any sugar entity will look into the business model. So where they are going to have the more returns. But sugar industry is going to play a dominant role, significant role in making this EBP 20 or beyond that a success. So they have a role to play.
You are true on that for any business unit, the profitability does matter. And considering that aspect, looking at the current crop pattern, how do you see the feedstock availability and requirement to meet the current blending rate or achieve that ambitious goal?
Interesting question and difficult to answer, because this is a question of economics. The prices of the raw material, they keep on rising. Because if you look into the scenario, around a year back, the price of the maize was at rock bottom, 12 rupees a kg, 14 rupees a kg. And once you started making ethanol from the maize, the prices today are 24 rupees to 28 rupees a kg. So that has benefited the farmers, in fact. So that benefit has gone to the last man in the queue. But, because of that, you need a better price of the maize too. So, but in totality, if I assess the situation, what are the potential feedstocks for making ethanol? Number one will be the sugar cane, because we do have a fantastic policy, and hopefully the government is sensible enough to see that the prices are revised with the escalation in the prices of the sugar cane, particularly the fair and remunerative price.
Right.
Because that has been increased. So you have to cope up with that one also, and the government has to look for revision of the prices too. The prices of the molasses have also escalated in the open market, so that has to be compensated. So once we get the revision of the prices, I think sugar industry again is going to play a dominant role. Second, my best bet would be the maize, where now we do have an ecosystem. The government is also bullish on can we have more ethanol from the maize. We are working on different genotypes of the maize also. The only, deterrent about the maize is the productivity, because if you look into the productivity across the globe, the average would be somewhere around 7 metric tons per hectare. Unfortunately, India, it is having around 3.6 metric tons per hectare. There are certain states which are having more than 7 metric tons per hectare.
Right.
So there is an institute, dedicated institute, Indian Institute of Millet Maize Research, which is working on that one. So hopefully we are going to have, escalation in the productivities of the maize also. So sugarcane-based feedstocks, maize, these are the two promising feedstocks for the sugar industry and making ethanol. Wow. Then, comes the, the rice, whatever surplus rice we can get. But we cannot depend upon, or we cannot bank upon rice, because it will be a debate versus food versus fuel. My third, choice would be on any feedstock which is not going to invite any conflict between food and fuel. Okay. So anything like any feedstock, because today, I may talk about many such 2G, 3Gs and 4Gs. not the reality today because of the reasons that at what cost.
At what cost?
But there are certain potential feedstocks in the pipeline. They may be the sweet sorghum, they may be, something like cassava, or there may be something, we can talk about this sugar beet also. So depending upon the area where they can be cultivated, and they can be cultivated and they are farmers friendly also.
Right.
We can look for regional specific distilleries or the ethanol units working on different feedstocks. But definitely at the end of the day, I will say today the two promising feedstocks are going to be sugar industry based feedstocks, and secondly it is going to be the maize. But in future we have to look for the feedstocks which are more like 2G, 3Gs and the 4Gs. Not inviting any food versus food dependent.
All right.
So, can you share some tips for the ethanol manufacturers who are manufacturing from molasses and syrup? That these tips that they can use in order to increase their efficiency or yield within that process. So, as an expert, can you share some tips?
Yes, of course, because once you are talking about anything for making it in a manner which we generally call it as a efficient manner. So we have to look into productivity from farm to factory. If you are making ethanol from the grains, say from the maize, so as I was talking about, you have to increase the productivity at the farms. The same way you have to look into productivity enhancement in the units also.
Right.
How much ethanol you can produce per ton or per kg of the maize. Similarly, how much efficiently. The efficiency that becomes important for all of us. Because if I talk about sustainability, because often we talk about the sustainability, and your opening question was also how to make anything sustainable.
Right.
There are three pillars of sustainability, to the best of my understanding at least. One is about the policy, which we have already discussed, that the government has come out with a fantastic policy and we are having a differential pricing policy for the ethanol. Second is, the productivity. Productivity at the farm level, productivity at the factory level. If it is the grain, then you have to see that how much ethanol you can make from the grains and how much ethanol you can make per unit of the molasses. And the third is, which is product. How many products you can make. So I'm not discussing the product, I'm talking about the productivity. Now there are few operations in the any ethanol unit. Basic operations are the fermentation, distillation and dehydration. Now you have to look for the benchmarking of the efficiency. Sometimes people say our cost of production is this much, our cost of production is this much. They differ in cost of production for the same rate of the raw material. Why it happens? It happens because of the difference or the variations in the technical efficiency in their units. How much fermentation efficiency you are getting? Suppose today if I am talking about fermentation, the maize fermentation, if you are getting a fermentation efficiency of 91 or 91.5, why not 92.5 or 93? Where the role of the technology providers and the R&D institutions comes into the picture.
Yes.
Same way the distillation efficiency, same way the dehydration efficiency, and that makes your overall cost of production. So you have to be sensible enough that you have to go for standard operating procedures. You have to go for bare minimum technology. You have to go for the best available technology also. So you have to keep yourself abreast with the changes which are occurring elsewhere also in ethanol world. So that is important. And only then you can reduce the cost of production of the ethanol also. If you think all the time the government is going to escalate the prices of the ethanol, it is not going to happen. The government is not going to subscribe for your inefficiency. You have to become efficient. How much is the cost of production and the elements into that one? Right. So that is to be seen. That becomes important for everybody, and this message should be very loud and clear to everyone. That government is all the time is not going to subscribe to your inefficiency. You have to look into the size of your pocket. That is important.
Sir, indeed insightful. And you just mentioned that we have to, look into the elements of which unit we are operating to. And currently, if we see, the grain-based ethanol fermentation is getting, gaining traction in India. How do you see the current state and the future potential of grain-based ethanol fermentation in India?
Grains are very important, as I said, because right now we are projecting 55% of the ethanol coming from the sugar industry based feedstocks and 45% from the grain.
Right.
Now, for any shortfall, because we are looking for 20% targets and even more, we are talking about sustainable aviation fuels where we are requiring alcohol. So, for all these purposes, if anything goes wrong with the sugarcane, from where the ethanol will come? Ethanol will come from the other feedstocks.
Right.
And right now, we do have only few feedstocks which can give ethanol to us because they are viable. Two feedstocks which we can talk today, they are about the maize and the rice. Rice is not the best bet because again the food versus fuel debate is there. So we have to look only for the surplus rice which is available in the country. Today we are in a country where we are giving free ration to more than 80 crores of the people. So we have to think for that also. So only surplus rice you are going to get, and you cannot bank upon the rice as a feedstock for making ethanol in times to come also.
Okay.
It is opportune, hugely opportune. If you can get it, you can make ethanol. But you don't have the, the surety about that one. But if you look into the maize, although you have dented to a certain extent the poultry industry, and they are also demanding that we should get, the feedstock at a proper price. But yet, because the government is pushing it now. Because maize is one crop which is a short duration crop. You can have two crops. It requires less of the irrigation water.
Right.
We are trying for increase in the productivity. And the government has created an ecosystem also.
Right.
What government today, to the best of my understanding, is trying to do, they are trying to create a system, an ecosystem which is parallel to the sugarcane. A better understanding between the distillers and the farmers, the maize farmers. Today, they have taken up the distribution of the maize through two agencies, NCCF and the NAFED, and they are providing the maize to the distillers for making the ethanol. So, in times to come, I think there should be a better cohesion between the distillers and the maize farmers as the type of the arrangement today we see between the sugar units and the sugarcane farmers. So, to me, for grains, it is basically the queen of cereals. Maize is going to dominate. All right.
It is great that maize is something which is promoted, and the government is actually thinking about how can we get new feedstocks, and that is making it lucrative for new investors to come into this industry. So, for a new investor, what are the critical aspects that you suggest that they should look at when they are setting up their plants, especially in terms of fermentation?
When I was a student of economics, so I was taught one thing, whenever we are going to start a new business, availability of the raw material at affordable price in abundance. So this is important. If we are going to have any unit or any distillation unit or ethanol unit in particular, we have to look for how much quantity is available in that particular area. Are we required to transport it from the far off places, or it is available in the vicinity of the unit? And at what prices? Because ultimately you are going to get a fixed price of the ethanol. So that is going to become the most important criteria for setting up any unit, anywhere. And this is true for any industry unit.
Right.
Number two, I am always very clear on this concept. If I talk about the, sugar, making sugar, for a person from the sugar industry, what I talk about? I talk about if you are having the sugar cane, your first and the most important task is to take out the maximum quantity of the juice which is available in the cells. Only then you can transform it into the sugar crystals. Same way, if you are having a distillation unit or if you are having ethanol unit, what should be the first priority? To convert most of the available sugars into ethanol. Where your fermentation comes into the picture. I'm sorry to say, this is varying widely on pan-India basis. And then people blame that they are not getting the efficiency or they are having very high cost of production. So my first, focus or first advice to any entrepreneur venturing or aspiring to set up any ethanol unit is best available technology, bare minimum technology, raw material, price of the raw material, and then please see what is the level of the fermentation efficiency you are getting in your plant. That is most important, because unless you achieve a definite, fermentation efficiency, you are not going to have more recovery of the ethanol in subsequent unit operations too. So that is important. And where, the role of the people like you come into the picture. Where the technology providers, where the cocktail of enzymes or use of the enzymes or the innovations carried out in this field, they come into the picture. So they have to be sensible enough, I should say. Sometimes the people are energetic, that very conservative. That we are having the the fermentation technique which we are following from the last 20 years or 30 years. No, the world has changed, the technology has changed, the concept has changed. So you have to adopt all those best available technologies and the procedures. So to see how much technical efficiency or how much fermentation efficiency you are getting. You just compare if you are having 91.5% of the fermentation efficiency and if you are having 92.5%. You calculate and then you will come to know how much you are losing because you are not having the fermentation efficiency to the design.
So you mentioned about the challenges and the state of affairs. They are, the focus somehow, they do their best, but still not, certain challenges are being faced. So as of now, what are the biggest challenges which any of the ethanol manufacturers are facing in India, from irrespective of the feedstock, be it sugar cane syrup or molasses or grain?
First challenge, because we have gone for capacity building. I should be very honest with myself because I was a part of the interest subvention scheme which was formulated by the government of India. I was sensible enough to suggest the people from the industry that you have to look into the availability of the raw material also because tomorrow every sugar factory is going ahead with the ethanol unit. And a lot of standalone ethanol units are going to come. How you are going to feed yourself? I was always talking about _Atmanirbhar model. You can get the food and, or you should say the feed and the fuel from your sugar units or from elsewhere. But you have to have a model which can suffice to your needs. So that is the biggest challenge which we are having today, particularly the standalone units. If you get the raw material, but at what price? Which is going to dent your economics. So this is the biggest challenge which we are having today. And in terms of the, units, if I talk about the units, how the units are performing and there are variations and what to do, what not to do. So there are certain standard protocols which we always talk about. As I was, suggesting you that we have to look for benchmarking of the efficiency parameters,
Right.
which is very important. This, this level of the fermentation efficiency, we have to benchmark. This is the distillation efficiency. This is the dehydration efficiency. Same way, my concerns are for the power and steam consumptions, fresh water consumptions, because I focus on environmental sustainability too. The economic and the environmental sustainability, they go hand in hand.
Right.
We have to look into the surroundings also. So that way, the sugar industry was sensible enough to convert them, following the norms of the Central Pollution Control Board. And tomorrow they are going to work on zero freshwater consumption. Same way, the distilleries which we have, they have to do something good. They have to innovate. And they have to find out technologies not to take any fresh water from outside and just to run their plants with their own, the water which is generated in the system. And secondly, benchmarking of the efficiency parameters, which is very important.
Right.
I would love to see that the fermentation efficiency, if a unit is working with the maize, having a minimum fermentation efficiency. If it is below rather the benchmark fermentation efficiency, then the root cause should be known to them. And if they are not taking, they are going to harm themselves because ultimately this is going to escalate the cost of the production.
Right.
So this is important.
So, many experts believe that this industry is still very underinvested in terms of technology. What are your thoughts on that?
I love this question. Actually, during my tenure as a director at National Sugar Institute, Kanpur, for 11 long years, I was very loud and clear, and perhaps we differed in opinion to a greater extent with the industry. How much you people are investing in R&D? You want a ready-made solution. You want a sort of ATM card. We should put the ATM card and we should get the money.
Right.
You are in distress. You are in problem. You want the remedies. You want to be viable. You want to be competitive. You want to be sustainable. If you fail at what you do, you go to a doctor. You take the prescription. and you do something of your own also. You are running business enterprises. You are entrepreneurs. Some of you are having 8 factories, 10 factories, 20 factories. Group of 80 means 10 means or 20 means की sugar factories and the ethanol units. But how much investment you are making R&D? Globally, if you go, you will find many sugar institute or such institutes being funded by the industry. Unfortunately, in India, to the best of my knowledge, because I had a long tenure as a director at National Sugar Institute, Kanpur, funds are not coming from the apex organization or from these industries to work on a particular problem. Either you should have your own R&D center, you may be having on a smaller scale, just to circumvent the problem or how to, mitigate the problem or to find out some, value-added products. But if I talk in general, nobody is investing on R&D and they expect government to do it, or others to do it, and to give the solution to them. So this is hugely, orphan. Hugely orphan. R&D is hugely orphan. Somebody has to take it. So my suggestion was with the, sugar industry, ethanol industry, and today also, that you have to invest in R&D. You have to work in cohesion with the R&D institutes, other institutes, and technology providers too. Only then you can think of moving forward and achieving the sustainability. So this is my words of wisdom to them.
So as you rightly mentioned, that industry per se is not too open, or they are a bit reluctant in terms of the technological innovations. So according to you, what technological advancement or innovations are highly recommended for fermentation, ethanol fermentation for both molasses and grain-based?
To the best of my understanding, we need innovations from end to end.
All right.
Right from, if you talk about the grains milling to DDGS. If you're talking about molasses, syrup, or any type of the molasses, this is basically the quality of the molasses to you dehydrate the ethanol and you just send it to the tankers and you dispatch it from the distilleries. So the total chain,
Right.
we have to look for the efficiency. And as I said, the most important, the most critical unit operation is the fermentation, where you are going to recover ethanol from the alcohol from the sugars which you are having in your raw material. Right. So this is always going to be important for all the distillers, all the ethanol units, everyone. And number two, which is going to become very important, is you need some support from the so-called waste or from the byproducts of the ethanol industry. Today, if we are talking about a system, if we are talking about sugar or ethanol or any other product, we are talking about the entire value chain.
Right.
What we can get out of the entire value chain, the exploitation of the entire value chain. Today, if we are having the CO2 from the fermenter gases, what we can do with that gas? Can we have the liquid, CO2? Can we have the dry ice? Can we convert the CO2 to, directly into ethanol? The 4G we are talking about.
Right.
Or the ash which we are getting in the boilers, in the molasses based distilleries or the ethanol units, can we recover the potash? We are doing it. Or it can be converted into a potash-rich fertilizer also. That way in the grains, if we talk about the grain based ethanol units, you are having the DDGS.
Right.
Sometimes you are talking about how to valorize the DDGS, because particularly in the maize based ethanol units, you are not getting the good price of the DDGS because of the low protein content or the color, or sometimes the problem with the aflatoxin and all that.
Right.
But particularly with DDGS, because it contains protein, can we look for diversifying and making many other food products containing protein, which other countries are doing? Can we look for recovering of the corn oil? Because we are running our distilleries on maize. So same way, we have to look for converting waste to resource, waste to wealth, and how we can exploit the byproducts which are available in the streams. So that is going to be important for all of us. And second, which is very important, is a reasonable, adoption of the instrumentation and automation. All right. So just to minimize the human interventions and any negligence out of it, just to improve the efficiency, because on and off you are talking about the efficiency. So if we want to increase the efficiency, the level of the efficiency, we have to have the reasonable instrumentation and automation too. This is important.
Plant owners should focus on turning waste into profit-making venture for themselves.
Okay.
So I would like to ask, like, sustainability essentially has become an increasingly important topic for long-term growth. So what should plant owners and ethanol manufacturers focus in terms of sustainability?
Sustainability is important for any industry because if you want to run your system, your organization, then you have to look for sustainability. And as I said, once particularly we talk about the sustainability, it is on economic and environmental front. Both the fronts we have to see because ultimately we have to be a responsible corporate too. So if we are talking about the economics and looking for sustainability in times to come, because we are setting up any unit not for few years or 2 years or 5 years, but for years together, for decades together. So we have to have a business model. Important is it is not making ethanol all the time. If you want to be sustainable, then you have to have some strategy, plan A, plan B, plan C. So that way, you have to think of what we can make in ethanol units. Ethanol today, you are having a good policy. The government is supporting. You are getting good prices of the ethanol. You are having, prices of the raw material also, which are good enough. So you are having economics in your favor.
Right.
Tomorrow, because of the, any imbalances in the demand supply scenario, the relative economics is not in your favor. Or sugar industry is not tempted to divert the, feedstocks for making ethanol. What would happen? So, and the government is also not going to subscribe for inefficiency, I said often. So then you have to look for how I can generate additional revenues. If you look into the sugar industry, because we are always talking about the model of the Indian sugar industry today and what it was 40 years back. Today we are having a more comfortable sugar industry, I should say, because of the value additions. 𝐏𝐸𝐴𝐺 power, 𝐏𝐸𝐴𝐺 to ethanol we are talking about, filter cake to CBG we are talking about, and the molasses we are talking about making ethanol or from different, other streams. So basically it is utilization of the byproducts in innovative manner.
Right.
Or in a sensible manner, I should say. The same way, the ethanol industry has to go in for introspection. What are the waste? What are the byproducts? How to go for innovative, utilization of those byproducts and waste in an innovative manner? How to generate additional revenue? So if something goes wrong with the ethanol prices, or if you are not getting the enough revenues from the ethanol, they are going to support you. Or even if you are going to have fantastic prices for the ethanol, even then you are going to get some additional revenue. So my perception would be make ethanol, but be sensible. Exploit your complete chain for that one. Look for your byproducts. Look for your waste. Don't call them waste because this is your inefficiency to exploit the potential. Only because of that, it is waste. So that way, I look into the show which is being, managed by the distillers and the ethanol units.
So during the course of discussion, you mentioned about the Brazilian model. So many experts believe that we have a very substantial ground to cover when we compare ourselves with the established countries having a set model like Brazil or the United States.
Right.
So how do you see where we stand today as of now and what are the grounds we need to cover?
For me, there is nothing like cut, copy and paste.
Right.
So, I cannot say that we have to adopt a particular model which is available in Brazil or USA and we have to adopt that. We differ to a greater extent in the geopolitical situation, which is there in Brazil or USA and which is prevailing in our own country.
True.
One thing we should never forget, because we are into ethanol blending program and we do have a very ambitious ethanol blending program, as you said. The problem is, again, we do have a country where we have to look into the socio-economic aspects too.
Right.
183 crores of the people or more than 80 crores of the people being, given free rations and all that. So we have to look for how much grains because, ultimately we need feedstocks. And feedstocks are two only. Then we talk about the 2G or 3G or the 4G. Either it should come from the sugar industry or it should come through grains. So again, the food versus fuel. So there is nothing like cut, copy and the paste. Sometimes the people equate us with the US. They say they do have a fantastic yield of the maize. They are having 420 liters per ton of blah, blah, blah. But you have to look into that. We cannot allow the GM corn or the GM maize because of our own reasons, our own apprehensions, you can say. So we are not going to allow, the government is not going to allow you. You have to cope up with 380 liters only. The only way out is you have to increase the farm productivity, which you can do. So we need more, the varieties of the maize, more varieties of the sugarcane. What we can today talk about increasing the productivity at the farm first, more crop per drop, more crop per hectare of the land, more sugar or more ethanol, or in fact more revenue per hectare of the land. Whether you make sugar or you make ethanol. If I say sugar, you will say, I'm a man from the sugar industry, so I'm taking, signals from those people and talking about more sugar per hectare. But I'm talking in general about benefiting both the farmers and the millers or the distillers, that we have to look for more revenues per hectare. And then how we can increase the efficiency at our products. If anything is good in, say, USA or in Brazil, technology-wise, then it is always good to, import that one and to implement in our factories also. As we are talking about, the fractionization of the DDGs, we are talking about the recovery of the corn oil. Since we are bullish on maize, then we have to look for how we can recover the corn oil and how we can make it viable. DDGs also, or any other technology at the fermentation stage or distillation stage, or for reducing the steam consumptions too. Today we are talking about the MVRs, the mechanical vapor recompression.
Yes.
It has become a reality today.
Yes. Right.
So that way we have to look for the best technologies which are available anywhere, not specific to Brazil or to USA, but across the world. This is my perception.
So, looking ahead, what role do you see of ethanol sector in India that will play for India's broader green energy strategy?
Already we have dented this planet a lot, and today we have entered into an era, not the global warming, but the global boiling, we call it. So naturally, any biofuel or bioenergy from any sector is going to play a dominant role, because you might have heard the COP28, and we are talking a lot on decarbonization and the net zero, and you must be aware about the targets of the country also in achieving the net zero emissions. So by 2070, earlier we were talking about 2050, but today we are talking about 2070 as a cutoff date when we are going to have the net zero emissions from this particular country. So energy, biofuels are going to play a dominant role into that. We have to replace the fossil fuels slowly, gradually, and completely by 2070. So this is to be, this is going to come in a big way, and nobody can prevent it. The only thing is we have to be holistic. We have to be having hands in hand. It is the hand holding which is going to be important. Otherwise, it is going to play a big role. Biofuels, bioenergy is going to play a big role in decarbonization and attaining the targets of the.
We are almost at the end of this conversation.
Right.
So I would like to, understand from you a word of advice for the three aspects of the industry. One is the industry itself, both sugar and distilling industry. Then there are young professionals who are entering into this arena of bioeconomy, circular economy, and biotechnology, and the young entrepreneurs who are venturing into the biofuel industry.
Right. Avdesh, at the end you have asked a very tough question, because you need time to respond.
Right.
Because as a teacher, I can give a lecture on this one.
Mm-hmm.
So the first question you were talking about what industry should look for and how to perform.
Right.
My message would be very simple in one word: keep innovating. This is going to be very important for them, unless you innovate, because technology is going to be the solution for all your problems. Number two, because students, I've been to academics and with the institute for 38 long years. So I interacted with the students a lot because I had fun playing with them, having meals with them, teaching them, and kicking them also at times because of the the whatever they were doing which was not in the interest of the institute, I should say. So, but my words of the wisdom for them, because always they used to come to me for, sir, the campus, what about the campus placement? So I used to say, first desert, then desire. You have to be sensible and you have to prepare yourself for taking up the upcoming challenges. So this is important. And for the new entrepreneurs, yes, if you are wishing to have ethanol units, if you are going to come to the sugar sector as a whole, I never talked about the sugar in the sugar factory in isolation. Today for me, sugar is a complex. It is an agri-business complex.
Right.
It is a biorefinery. And particularly for persons who are aspiring to set up the ethanol units, you are going to enter into an arena of enormous possibilities. Because this is not ethanol alone, it is not the green energy alone, but in times to come, you will see sustainable aviation fuels, many ethanol-based chemicals, so opportunities and opportunities. But you have to be sensible. You have to be, sensible and cautious, not to be over-ambitious. So these are my words for the three categories of the, the sectors or the persons you wanted my advice on them. So this is, from my side.